All right. Before we get into this one, let me just say something real quick. Some of y'all have definitely argued with somebody in the shower and won the argument. Don't act innocent. You replayed the whole conversation, came up with better comebacks, better points, probably threw in a dramatic exit too. And if we're being really honest, some of y'all are still mad at people from like 2014. You forgave them publicly, but privately, oh no, the director's cut is still playing in your head. Quick disclaimer. This is just my thoughts, my perspective, connecting dots, asking questions, for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, you get it. But seriously, today we're talking about wrath. And wrath is different from anger. That's important. Because anger by itself isn't automatically evil. Anger can warn you, protect you, push you to establish boundaries, expose injustice. There are things in life you should be angry about. But wrath is what happens when anger stops listening. Wrath doesn't just want to be heard. It wants someone to hurt. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because wrath usually doesn't feel wrong in the moment. It feels justified. It feels like, they pushed me too far. They deserved it. I'm tired of being disrespected. I'm done staying quiet. And if we're being honest, most wrath doesn't start as hatred. It starts as pain. Accumulated frustration, humiliation, disrespect, resentment that never got processed properly. That's why people say things like, I just snapped, as if the destruction started in that exact moment. But usually, it started way earlier. It started in the build-up, the pressure, the constant irritation, the stress at work, the arguments at home, the feeling of being ignored, dismissed, overlooked. And after a while, all of that emotional pressure starts stacking internally. Until eventually, something small happens. Somebody says the wrong thing, looks at you wrong, cuts you off in traffic, makes one sarcastic comment at the wrong time. And suddenly, boom, explosion. Not because the moment itself was huge, but because the emotion underneath it already was. And honestly, modern life feeds this constantly. Social media, comment sections, outrage culture, algorithms that reward anger more than peace. People are literally being conditioned to react before they think, to speak before they process, to attack before they understand. Because anger spreads fast. It's emotional, contagious, addictive even. And after a while, people stop realizing how much rage they're carrying internally. Because wrath doesn't always look explosive on the outside. Sometimes it looks controlled, cold, quiet, passive-aggressive. Sometimes wrath is smiling in your face, while secretly hoping something bad happens to you. That's wrath too. Because wrath isn't just yelling. It's destruction living in the heart. And the scary part is, the longer anger sits unresolved, the more it starts shaping perception. You become more reactive, more defensive, more emotionally sensitive to disrespect. Eventually, you stop looking for resolution. You start craving retaliation. And once that shift happens, wrath starts controlling the person, instead of the person controlling the anger. And if we're being honest, almost everybody knows what this feels like. That moment where emotion rises so fast that wisdom can barely speak. Where part of you knows, calm down, but another part of you wants to unleash everything you're feeling. Because wrath always feels powerful in the moment, until you finally see what it destroyed afterward. And to really understand how this pattern builds, not just in theory, but in real life, let's walk through it. So this story starts the way a lot of wrath stories start. Not with violence, not with screaming, not with destruction. It starts with pressure. A man wakes up already exhausted. Bills piling up, stress at work, sleep getting worse, arguments at home becoming more frequent. And every day, he keeps swallowing it, keeps pushing through it, keeps telling himself, "I'm good, it's fine, I'll deal with it later." But later never comes, because life keeps moving. More pressure, more irritation, more little moments stacking internally. And eventually, he starts carrying anger the way people carry background noise, constantly, quietly, without even realizing how heavy it's becoming. Then one day, he's at work, already stressed, already frustrated, already emotionally overloaded. And a coworker makes a comment. Small comment, maybe sarcastic, maybe dismissive, maybe not even intended to be disrespectful. But in that moment, it hits something deeper. Because wrath usually isn't about the moment itself. It's about everything underneath the moment. The disrespect he never addressed, the humiliation he never processed, the pressure he never released. And suddenly, the emotional dam breaks. Voice raises, words sharpen. Now it's not even really a conversation anymore. It's emotion trying to hurt something. And this is the dangerous part about wrath. Because once emotion takes control, discernment starts disappearing. Now the goal isn't understanding. It's winning, punishing, releasing pain outward. And once someone reaches that point, they often say things they don't actually mean, do things they normally wouldn't do, not because they became a different person instantly, but because accumulated emotion finally overpowered restraint. And afterward comes the silence, that heavy silence after the explosion, the moment where reality settles back in. And suddenly, the anger that felt so powerful a few minutes ago doesn't feel powerful anymore. Now there's damage, relationships strained, respect lost, possibly even consequences that can't be taken back. Because wrath doesn't just affect the target, it affects the person carrying it too. And this is where people usually misunderstand anger. Because unresolved anger doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It usually transforms into bitterness, resentment, emotional instability, constant irritability. And eventually, people stop responding to situations based on what's actually happening and start reacting from accumulated emotional pain. That's why some people explode over things that seem small. Because the reaction isn't connected to one moment. It's connected to years of build-up. And modern culture feeds this constantly. You see it online every day. People waiting to attack each other, waiting to argue, waiting to humiliate someone publicly. Because outrage has become entertainment. Algorithms reward anger. The more emotional people become, the more attention they generate. And after a while, people stop realizing they're emotionally addicted to conflict. That's why wrath spreads so easily. One angry person creates another. One act of retaliation creates another. One unresolved wound keeps multiplying itself through other people. And if it goes unchecked long enough, wrath stops being something a person feels and starts becoming part of their identity. And this is where the story starts becoming dangerous. Because eventually, that anger looks for a target. And once it finds one, wrath rarely stays rational for long. And that's exactly what we see in the story of Saul. And this is where wrath becomes truly dangerous. Because once anger stops being processed, it starts looking for somewhere to go. And if it sits unresolved long enough, it eventually finds a target. That's exactly what we see in the story of Saul and David. Now, what makes this story powerful is that it didn't begin with hatred. At first, Saul actually liked David. David served him, played music for him, fought for him. David even helped calm Saul during moments of emotional torment. And for a while, everything seemed fine. But then something shifted. David starts winning battles. People start praising him publicly. And eventually, a comparison enters Saul's mind. The people begin saying, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." And that line hits something deep inside Saul. Not because David attacked him, not because David betrayed him, but because Saul started feeling replaced, overshadowed, threatened. And once those feelings sat unresolved, they slowly transformed into wrath. That's the dangerous thing about unprocessed emotion. It changes perception. Now Saul doesn't see David as support anymore. He sees him as competition, as a threat, as someone standing too close to something Saul fears losing. And over time, that internal instability starts consuming him. Suspicion grows, paranoia grows, emotional reactions become more extreme, until eventually, Saul tries to kill David, multiple times. And one of the wildest moments in the story is that David is literally playing music for Saul, trying to calm him, when Saul suddenly throws a spear at him, twice, trying to pin him to the wall. And that right there is wrath. Not controlled anger, not justice. Emotion trying to destroy something. And the deeper part of the story is this. David repeatedly spares Saul later on, meaning Saul's wrath wasn't really being fueled by David's actions anymore. It was being fueled internally, by fear, insecurity, humiliation, loss of control. And if we're being honest, that's how wrath usually works in real life too. A lot of people aren't reacting only to the current moment. They're reacting to accumulated pain, built-up resentment, unresolved hurt, emotional exhaustion. That's why some reactions seem so much bigger than the situation itself. Because the explosion didn't start in that moment. That moment just lit the fuse. And if anger keeps sitting unresolved, eventually it starts reshaping the person carrying it. You become more reactive, more defensive, more emotionally sensitive to disrespect. And after a while, you stop wanting peace. You start craving retaliation. That's when wrath takes control. And the scary part is, wrath rarely destroys the other person first. Most of the time, it destroys the person carrying it while they're trying to hurt someone else. And this is where we need to slow down and be real with ourselves. Because if you're carrying constant anger, please don't normalize it. Seriously. Talk to somebody, journal it, pray, exercise, create something. Find healthy ways to express what's happening internally. And if you need deeper help, please seek it. Therapy, counseling, trusted people. Don't carry emotional pain alone until it turns into destruction. Sit with yourself long enough to understand what's underneath the rage. Because sometimes wrath is pain trying to regain power through destruction. And remember this: stillness before reaction is wisdom at work. And that doesn't just mean physically being still. It means learning how to become emotionally and spiritually still, long enough for clarity to speak before anger does. Because at the end of the day, anger itself isn't the enemy. But anger without reflection, without healing, without restraint, can slowly become something destructive. With that being said, wrath often leaves people emotionally exhausted, burned out, disconnected, numb. And after enough emotional chaos, another dangerous pattern starts creeping in. Not explosive this time, but empty. Sloth. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, comment, share with your loved ones, your family now. And please, join us for our next video as we get into sloth. We love you. Take care, and I'll see you there. Actually, one last thing. I wrote a couple of songs in regards to wrath. One is the spirit of wrath, and the other is the counter to it. Take a listen. I hope you enjoy. It's just a sample. Links are in the description.